The stone walls were scorched. In many places the walls were broken. The towers of the city had been torn down. Most houses and buildings inside the walls had burned during the attack. The dragon had been driven away, but the city was not unscathed. Yet in the midst of the rubble there stood a knight, in dented but shining silver armor, with a lady in a flowing light blue dress. The lady had blonde hair that fell down her back in light curls. They stood close. She looked up into his face and smiled. He smiled back, though he was more nervous now than he had been when the dragon towered over him. He leaned forward and kissed her gently on the lips. The world had burned away, and these two had found love. Her family had been from the merchant class. Her father was more or less now in charge. People respected him because he was rich. They admired him because he was unscathed by fire. His daughter was unscathed. Some said she was beautiful because she was unscathed. The knight was scarred by the battle. The right side of his face below his ear had been burned by the flames. She did not see the scars. They walked from the remains of a tower toward the center of the ruined city. They were looking for her father, but did not reach him. A woman dug through the ruins of a small home. Her hands were scorched nearly black. The dragon did not discriminate. She threw pieces of charred wood out of the way. She let out a wail. The knight and lady turned their heads toward her. "Where is it?" The lady went to her, put her arm around the old woman. "What's wrong?" "I can't find it." "Find what?" The old woman looked with wild eyes. "The silver! The silver! If I had no silver, then they will throw me into the dungeon, and I will be whipped to work to build everything back." "Says who?" "The merchantmen." The old woman went back to tearing through the remains of her home and muttering, "Why did the dragon come here? We have no gold. I thought dragons wanted gold." The lady and the knight walked hand in hand, no longer smiling. They walked to the center of town, and there were the merchantmen. Taller than all of them was the lady's father. He smiled. He boasted how he stood strong on the walls and not suffered wounds, laughed loud from the gut. "Father?" the lady called to him. Are you forcing people to pay to stay out of the dungeon?" The father ignored the question. He saw his daughter's fingers intertwined with the knight, and then saw his face. "What's the meaning of this? No matter. Get away from him. Look at his face. How can you stand there?" "Father, how can you say that?" "I said get away from him. He's one of the men who let the dragon burn us all. His scars show it." He stepped between them, extending his arms to separate them. The knight and the lady tried to keep their hands together, their fingers desperately trying to maintain the slightest touch. Father's arms were too long. "The weak shall have no place with the strong. Send him to the dungeon with the rest of them." "No!" yelled both the lady and the knight as large guards pulled him toward the dungeon, as the father held his daughter with a smile on his face. But as the two begged, protested, and screamed, a new sound filled the air. A roar. A beastly roar that shook the ground. The dragon had returned. The guards released the knight. In the midst of chaos and terror, the differences in orders were forgotten. The knight and the guards rushed from the city to battle the great dragon once more. Fire spewed. It marched and flew and landed around the city. The knight rushed toward the dragon when it landed near him. No helmet and dented armor. He lunged with a spear. It plunged into the underbelly. The beast roared and shook its body. The knight went flying into the battered ruins of a wall. His eyes never opened again. At the funeral for the fallen, the lady cried. Father spoke of the dragon slayer, thanked him, blessed him, placed a rose on the ground, and as he did so, a gold coin fell from his pocket.